Hey everyone, thanks for coming today. I'm just so inspired by all of the work that all of you are doing. It's really, really incredible. So I'm Yaniv. I founded Geo. Um, I founded or co-founded a Web3 infrastructure protocol called the Graph back in 2017 and helped start House of Web3 here. So thank you. So I really believe in the transformative power of technology to empower people, and Web3 is it's a new platform that's been under development for many years, and it's an incredible new set of tools. So what is it? The web. We use software, we use the web every day, and it has a certain architecture, right? Where there's companies that run these servers and these applications that we use, right? Companies like Facebook and Google and YouTube, and those companies really control the software, right? And we just have to use it, but they really set the rules and they control all of it. And so Web3 is a new platform that's decentralized. And so there's no company that controls the core software for society that we use every day. And instead, it's the people that have the power and control. And so it runs on decentralized networks. It's open public infrastructure, and I think that can be a really powerful tool for all of us in this room who are working on like social services, right? To really serve the public. So how does it work? Well, and how do we want to use it? So we're really committed to using these tools for good, and we want to solve big, important challenges. And so we've dedicated ourselves to the problem of ending homelessness here in the Bay Area. And so we're going to be working on this as long as it takes. And we're so just fortunate and lucky to be like learning from and working with incredible folks like those of you in this room who've been doing a lot of this sort of work for much longer than we have. We started House of Web3 here to be a place for technologists, people who are building Web3, as well as people who are working on local areas in San Francisco, doing the social work to come together to work on these things together. And if you have events or meetings that you want to have, in collaboration with other folks in this room, we can make this space available to you. Please get in touch with Nicole, who can help you get plugged in. So what kinds of things can we do with Web3, right? We want to organize the world's public knowledge and information in a decentralized way, right? It's a new internet. And one of the sorts of things that we can do is start organizing things like policy. Right? We talk to a lot of people who are doing things with nonprofits, and if you're getting your funding from the city, a lot of times there's strings attached, right? There's policies that are made by whether it's the board of supervisors or in City Hall, and maybe you're not part of those conversations and you're not able to impact those policies. And what we've seen is that the people on the ground who are doing the work are really in the best position to know, like, how are these policies affecting the people on the streets and the people doing the work. And so giving people new tools and ways that they can be part of the discussion and they can provide their proposed solutions and the data that they're getting, and having these conversations in an open way, that's one type of example of things that we can do with this. A big benefit of Web3 is it uses the blockchain, right, which is open public infrastructure. And so we have transparency and accountability. So think of having a bank account that's public on the blockchain that people can see the flow of funds. That creates trust. Now people know, you don't have to just have these transparency reports or these things where people don't necessarily know where all the money's going. By actually having things that are verifiable on chain, on the blockchain, people can trust these social services much better, and we can start tracking results and metrics and all of these things on the blockchain. We can have interoperability. Right now, there's lots of great organizations, but they operate in silos. Right, they're individual systems. They don't necessarily work together. And so, Brett gave a great presentation. He was talking about, what are we measuring? And so if we have this open public infrastructure that we can share with interoperability, where we can track the user journey for people across these different service providers, and we can have a shared set of facts, a shared set of metrics, and these things interoperate, that's a power of having open, neutral infrastructure that we can all plug into. We can have new voting systems, right? We believe in meritocratic systems and empowering a lot of people to be part of shaping this. And so on the blockchain and with Web3, we can design new voting systems where, if you want to, for example, give a voice to the clients, right, or the people who are receiving the services. They can have a vote. You can bring in different stakeholders and they can participate, the different service providers. So you can design these new voting systems that are very democratic, again, public with transparency and accountability to help do things like setting policies and making decisions. We have things like DAOs. So DAOs are like a new organizational structure, right? So, today, if you want to make change, maybe you have a for-profit corporation or you have a nonprofit, we have governments, but really, DAOs are a new organizational structure that operate on the blockchain. And so you can have members, and those members can do things like vote and set policies. They can distribute funds out to the different service providers or participants. There's lots of things that you can do with this. And so at Geo and here at House of Web3, we've already started spawning a set of DAOs to tackle different elements of the homelessness issue. So for example, we have a DAO on transitional housing or workforce development, street outreach. So we'll be hearing from 5 of these different DAOs today, right after me. Each one's gonna go up and share a little bit about what they're doing so we can get an example of how these sorts of things can work. And people can provide services directly to these DAOs, but also they can be a great way to just coordinate work between different organizations. Right, so all of your nonprofits, organizations that already exist, can just kind of plug into these DAOs, or you could create your own DAOs. So, there's really a whole new set of tools here that we can use for social coordination, and to really make progress and impact in a new way. So I want to just show a little bit about how this all works. So if you come to geobrowser.io, you can see the browser. And here we're going to have, eventually, all of the world's public knowledge and information organized and served in a decentralized way on this new Web3, this new internet. And so these are all individual spaces, and a space has its own community. And each community can organize themselves and have knowledge and information on here. So we can have a space for each industry. So for example, let's say you work in social work. So there's a space for that. And you can jump in and see here, we have these pages where you can add tables, text, images. So maybe in the social workspace, there's a bunch of different roles. For example, maybe I want to see about being like a probation officer. So everything here, it looks a little bit like Wikipedia, but maybe a little bit nicer. And you have, so these are entities. Entities can have types, so this is a role, right? And then there's data related to that entity. And you can also just have any arbitrary content, these beautiful pages that you can publish. So maybe, to be a probation officer, there are different skills, and maybe I want to learn about one of these skills. And so, each thing gets its own page, and over time you could imagine maybe we want to curate a list of different, like training materials, and certification programs, different things for people to provide these different services. I'm having trouble getting to the top here, so I will just try this. Something with the browser. So we have spaces for things like, psychology, where we're going through different studies, right? A lot of times, we can't even agree on basic facts, and people will cite studies, and how do you respond back if we can't agree on basic facts? So we can add all of the studies, all the different claims, and get to, share truth around that. Areas like health and healthcare. Spirituality, there's a lot of people here that are faith-based, so organizing a lot of the, maybe lessons from scripture or things that are relevant there. If we jump into the California space, we can see things like, community improvement and initiatives, and businesses, where we can see, for example, our nonprofits. So, actually not sure what the nonprofits are. So every organization can have, a page or even a space here on Geo where you can show off the work that you're doing. This way we can be tracking our progress against all of our goals. So, what we'd love to see is this start to become kind of a dashboard that we're using for our city, where, all of the metrics and the progress and the information are all being tracked on this open infrastructure. People can come and we can see the progress that we're making on our different goals. We can agree on our shared goals. We can discuss the problems, the solutions, and we can distribute funding out to the different organizations that are doing the work. And so, it's just open public infrastructure for us to coordinate on solving the Bay Area's biggest challenges. And I'd love to chat with anybody here to see how we can plug in and just work together on solving these big challenges.
Thank you, Yaniv. So before we introduce the DAO coordinators, why don't you go on and come on up, all the DAO coordinators. Yaniv, while they're coming up, would you mind answering one question? In your opinion, what are 3 benefits of having decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs?
Yeah, so the first big one is, transparency and accountability. I think people are going to give more when they can see the results of where that money is going. And so I think that's a really big one. I think having the voting systems, to have more democratic systems for where people can really participate, and you can have a place where you can have all of these in-depth discussions. And I think that is a really big one. And then programmable money, I think, is a really cool tool. So when people hear about crypto, right, sometimes they're thinking, oh, it's a get rich, kind of thing, and that's really not what it's about. And for a lot of these things, like, we can just be using US dollars, right, that are just on chain, but we now have these smart contracts where we can program incentive systems. So you can say, okay, if you perform these actions, you get paid out this much money, right? Or if you've done these things and you've done these trainings, then you can perform this action and you can get paid out for that. And so, these are all just tools that we can use and innovate to design our incentive systems and to get the outcomes that we want.
Thank you very much. All right, let's give Yaniv a big round of applause.